I'm Trisha Curtin White, class of '88. I'm your fairly new Alumni Association president, and delighted to be here tonight and to serve as your president for the next 2 years. This has been an exciting year. You'll read in the bulletin article that comes out soon how when I said yes, it was pre-pandemic, and then I said yes, and boom, the pandemic hit. And so we've learned to do things differently, i.e. this meeting. But I think it's been an honor and a privilege to work with everybody and to be able to do these kinds of things, such as Zoom meetings, and to be able to see more people from across the country. So you all have received the agenda. I'll just say the framework for tonight, we're going to do an alumni roll call, and I'll mention what that is. Give a board update. The dean will give us an update, which is always interesting to hear. We'll do a Q&A with Dr. Tykocinski, and questions for me can also be put in there if we don't get to them at the end of my update. And then any old business, new business, and at the end, any comments. So we really welcome your input on this. You can can they chat in, or they can chat in, or they can unmute, right? Jeff, okay.
Yes.
And Christina. So I may just need some direction from you about a couple of these things, but so we'll get started. I'll just say a little bit about myself. I'm Trisha Curtin White. I work at Christiana Care. I'm section chief of geriatric medicine. I'm an internist geriatrician, and I'm class of '88, as I said. And I'm also a postgraduate alum. I went back and did a geriatric medicine fellowship in 99 to 2000. So I sort of serve in both camps and classes. So I'm thrilled to be able to serve you as your president, and I work with a wonderful board. And I'm going to try and tap the board now to introduce themselves, but we may be a little out of order because I'm going to actually call out people by name or by your phone number if you're on that, and then we'd like you to unmute, and that's *6, Jeff. *6 to unmute, and then
it's *6.
Pardon me?
If you're on the phone, it will be *6.
*6. And then if you're on the Zoom, then you unmute. So what we would like is to hear your name, your class year, your specialty, and the where you're from, what part of the country you're from or the state you're from. So with that, I'm going to start with Jeff, who's in the top corner, in my corner anyway. Jeff, can you tell us who you are?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Spence from the Alumni Relations Office.
Thank you. Doing a yeoman's job. Christina.
Christina Giso, also from the Alumni Relations Office.
John Wu. Actually, I'm doing this out of order.
Hi, I'm John Wu. I'm out in Seattle, Washington. I am a graduate of Jeff, class of 1995. I did my family medicine residency out in Pittsburgh, and then my sports medicine down in fellowship down in Georgia. I was most recently on faculty at the University of Washington. Currently, I'm working with the Community Health Center, and we're getting together with a group of other sports doctors in town to develop a practice focusing on dancers and performing artists. But we were a little bit sidetracked by this COVID thing.
Thank you. Dr. Anguita?
Hi, I'm Gallicano Anguito, Jefferson class of 1990. I'm a family physician. I'm currently the secretary of the Alumni Association, and I'm currently live in Newark, Delaware.
Dr. Haas?
Yeah, Dave Hawes. I'm an ophthalmologist, class of '86, and I'm living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Great. Let me just see, Dr. Meiden? I'm going a little out of order here, but go ahead.
Hey, Joseph Biden, cardiovascular 81. I came to Jefferson in '79 and have not left. I've been here teaching almost 40 years. Next year will be 40 years. I'm Director of Clinical Proficiency Remediation. And it is an honor and privilege to be here and to be able to work among such esteemed colleagues and to see a lot of my former students and to have the honor and privilege to teach here.
Great, thank you. Dr. Morose, she joined us, Lynn Odoricio Morose. Thank you. Good friends. I didn't even text her to say join.
I know. Lynn Odoricio Morose, class of 1987, Jeff Medical School, and 1992 anesthesia at Jefferson as well. And I live in Haddonfield, New Jersey, and I had no idea this would be live. I'm sorry. I would have.
You look great. Okay. Dr. Scholes.
Peter Scholes, class of 1970. Orthopedics by training, academic administration and practice. I live in Bryn Mawr and work at Jefferson.
Great. Dr. Randy Wong, a board member.
Oh, hi, Randy Wong, class of 1988, as is Trish, general surgeon in Burlingame, California.
Great. Dr. Kestner.
Yeah, it's Ted Kestner, class of 1968 at Jefferson. Did a couple years of internal medicine residency 3 years later, and did pulmonary medicine in Delaware, and had the good fortune of meeting our president, Trish Curtin, when she was a fourth-year student at Jefferson. Proud of you, Trish.
Thank you. See? Thank you. Oh my goodness. Great to have you here. I'm going down a list here. So your view and my view may be different. So whoever is 609-504-1575 phone.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Bill Harrer, retired from practice of pathology, graduated Jefferson in 1962.
Great. Hi, Dr. Harrer. Great to see you. Thank you. Dr. Anna D'Amico, another Delawarean person.
Hi, class of 72 at Jefferson, residency in Wilmington and OBGYN.
Great. Okay, my screen's changing here. Okay, Dr. Crystal Reed, another board member. You have to unmute there. I know, Crystal, if you're speaking, you need to unmute. I'm going to come back to you, Crystal. Dr. Rosenman.
Hi, David Rosenman, class of 1968, retired psychiatrist. I live in Wyncote, PA.
Great. Okay, now my screen's changing here. Okay. Dr. Eddie Chang, another board member.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eddie Chang, Jefferson class of 2000. Left Philadelphia for just a little bit for residency in New York, but I've been back since. I'm a neonatologist by training. Super honored to be on clinical faculty at Jefferson at the Abington campus. I'm the chief of neonatology there and get the privilege of teaching Jefferson students and some postgraduate trainings as well.
Great. Dr. Elliot Rayfield. And please unmute. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm in the class of 1967 at Jefferson. I'm the class agent for my class. I'm an endocrinologist and I'm located in New York now. I'm clinical professor of medicine at Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. And I'm very happy to be at this meeting. Looking forward to everything with bated breath. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to have you. Dr. Erica Locke.
Hi, I'm Erica Locke. I am Jefferson class of 2010, and I did the EMFM residency at Christiana, class of 2015. I currently live in Monterey, California, and practice in a community hospital in Salinas, which is a small underserved community here. I'm a Philly born and raised. I miss Philly. It's really, even though Monterey is beautiful, it's tough because we can't come home right now.
Oh, great. Thank you, Erica. Dr. Valco, George Valco, former president.
Trish, congratulations on your presidency. I'm still at Jefferson, class of 86. I'm the interim chair of the Department of Family and Community Medicine.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Irfan Galaria?
Hi, everyone. I'm Irfan Galaria. I'm a plastic and reconstructive surgeon in Northern Virginia. I graduated in 2001 with the MBA also through Dr. David Nash's program. My wife graduated in 2001 as well, and she's a dermatologist. So she's my boss at home and boss at work as well.
That's great. Dr. John Kelly? Dr. Kelly, let's see. I'll come back if, okay. Dr. John Kutz,
Hi, everybody.
board member.
Yep. Class of 93 from Jefferson, general surgery 98 at Jefferson. Spent 4 years in the Air Force and came back to Penn to do a fellowship at Pennsylvania Hospital in vascular surgery. So I'm a vascular surgeon in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Great.
Thrilled to be here. Love Jefferson.
Thank you. Dr. Now he told me how to say his name. Norika? I didn't get that right, I don't think. Dr. Joseph Norika, we had a nice meeting. Are you on? I know you're on, but I'll come back. Okay, I see him moving. Okay, Dr. Trays.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Catherine Trays, class of 2006, did my family medicine at Jefferson as well, residency 2009. And I'm currently on faculty as one of the student affairs deans at the medical school. I'm happy to be a new member on the board. Thank you.
Great addition. Dr. Norika, oh, there you are. Can you, Dr. Norika, do you want to unmute? Oh, great, thank you.
I think we're good now. Yeah, class of 76, the bicentennial year. I'm an ophthalmologist, as is Dr. Haas, and currently I'm under house arrest in the Poconos, secondary to COVID. I'm attending tonight because I'm very interested as a proactive class agent to understand the board's workings and especially to hear what Mark Tykocinski has to say.
Great, thank you. Dr. Lockwood Young? Okay, I'll come back to you, Dr. Young. I hope, hopefully somebody's keeping track of all the people I'm coming back to, because I think I made my list made. Let's see, Dr. Mark Tykocinski, who probably does not need any introduction, but our dean, who we'll hear from later. Okay, well, we'll introduce you. You want to? You'll have 30 minutes to speak to us, Dr. Tykocinski.
You'll hear plenty, right?
Yeah. Okay, and we're looking forward to it. Dr. Michael Rakoff.
Class of 1970 and also born at Jefferson in 1944. Retired pediatrician.
Oh, great. Oh, that's great. Wow. Dr. Nick Ruggiero, our previous, I didn't do you yet, right, Nick? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. This is Nick Ruggiero, class of 2001. I've spent most of my career at Jefferson Medical School, internal medicine residency, chief residency, general fellowship. They went away to Boston for 2 years to come back and start, and now director of the structural heart program here at Jefferson. So pretty much a lifer between myself and my family, and glad to be on the call this evening.
Thanks, Nick, and for your service before this. You set us up for success, I think. So thank you so much. Dr. Yvonne Wong.
Hi, Yvonne Wong. I'm a neonatologist in Austin, Texas, class of 1995. And this is my first call into the Alumni Association meeting. So I'm excited to maybe get a little bit more involved now. So super excited, especially now with virtual stuff. I felt a little distant in Texas, but maybe, I can do a little bit more now in this new world we're in.
That's great. Thank you. We're writing your name down. Thank you. That's wonderful. That's great. Thank you. Okay. And my screen changed a little bit. if anybody did not get to introduce themselves, I'm going back up here. Dr. Kelly, we did not hear from you yet. John Kelly, are you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great. Yes.
John Kelly, class of 1984. I'm a clinical cardiologist in Wilmington, Delaware.
Oh, John, hi. It's you.
That's John Kelly.
That's John the Third.
Right. Okay. All right. Dr. Rayfield. Did we get Dr. Rayfield? No, we did him. Let's see. We did. Okay. Dr. Rosenman. I'm going back up the list. Okay. Anybody else that we did not get to hear from?
Dr. Young.
Dr. Young. Okay.
Well, I thought you're only introducing the board members, so I had my video and microphone off. But Lockwood Young, classmate of Elliot Rayfield, OBGYN retired, living and practiced in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Great. Thank you. That's great. There are a couple of phone numbers, 215-776-7280.
Yes, hi, this is Harry Sachs, pediatrics, 1989, and I am in clinical development in pharmaceuticals, so little different path than some of my colleagues here, and glad to join you. I'm in the Philadelphia area.
Great, thank you. Okay,
Crystal Reed.
Great, thank you, Crystal. Okay.
You're welcome. Radiation oncology, class of 1989, and I'm in Evansville, Indiana.
And a board member.
Yes.
So thank you, Crystal, for
Sure.
joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Did I miss anybody else? *6 to unmute if you're on the phone, but I think we got everybody. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, great. Are we on time? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. This is wonderful. If anybody else joins us, please. Problem. Oh, that's my Siri. Okay. Please feel, put your hand up, and we will then introduce you after this next little segment. So I'm just going to, Jeff, you're advancing my slides, right? So thank you for, this is me. I'm going to just give a few minutes, a little bit of summary. We had a meeting before this tonight, and our board meeting, and we've had one board meeting in September. And so we've had a lot of activity, and we thought you would appreciate an update from your Alumni Association on behalf of all of you and what we've been doing during this time. So next slide, please. So we met. We have our executive board, so our vice president and secretary. So vice president Dr. Wong and secretary Gallicano and Guido. We have a little executive committee, and then we have the alumni board, and we meet 4 times a year. The executive committee meets a little bit more often, and I meet a lot with the alumni relations staff. So our goal and our theme, we thought this was really actually great during COVID. Not that I picked the C's for COVID, but connection, communication, and commitment with our students, our alumni, our postgraduate alumni. That's a group that we have quite a few of, and then Sidney Kimmel Medical College as a whole, and Jefferson as a whole, as a university. And so that's a sort of a tall order, but we felt like those were some things that we could focus on with some specific activities during this year. This is a 2-year term for me, so we have time, but we really, hit the ground running from the very beginning. And so we're excited to share that with you. Next slide. So our early outreach, I actually was privileged to meet with the first year students in July. I had 5 minutes with them, and I made good use of those 5 minutes. I think I welcomed them to to Jefferson, to SKMC. And Sidney Kimmel Medical College. My message to them was, they're embarking on this wonderful path to this career that, we all, I think, cherish and really enjoy, and that we would be there with them for the 4 years and beyond. So it wasn't a, hello, we'll see you at graduation. It was, we're here for you. And because of the programs that we saw that we needed to really put in place during this pandemic and to connect with our students, I think that they are feeling more connected. And so I really felt with confidence based on the activities of the past couple of years with our board and our alumni association that we would be able to make that promise. The next thing, we had lots of meetings in between, but the next thing was the Alumni Weekend virtual reunion celebration on October 14th in place of what would normally have been in person. Of course, that was a first-time event. We had a wonderful reunion with 183 participants from 33 states and 2 countries. We started with a parade of classes. We had a day in the life of the medical students. 2 medical students shared their day with us, what that would be like on a video. We honored our deceased alumni with a necrology. We heard from Dean Tykocinski, a nice report, and we'll hear some of that tonight, but which was really good. And some questions came in after that. We had a good discussion. And we, at the end, we unmuted everybody, which was sort of fun, a little chaotic, but it was fun. And we unmuted everyone. And then we read, led by Dr. Tykocinski, by the Dean, the Hippocratic Oath. I still get a lump in my throat every time I read that to the end. I mean, I don't read it every day, of course, but on the occasion when I do get to read it for some event, I really feel really connected to, what the oath I took, in 1988. So I thought that was really, really great. We got some feedback about the event overall. People really enjoyed it. The milestone reunion, everybody was invited, but the milestone reunion classes, of course, were the ones that were, most participation. The 50-year class was recognized. And also we had 2 alumni award winners. The first was the Alumni Achievement Award by Dr. Ronald Wapner, which is our usual award that we give out every year. And then we had a new award this year, Early Career Achievement Award, and that was run by Dr. Rachna Trivedi Shroff, and she was really touched by that, and they shared their comments with us. So we were really honored to be able to do that. Our alumni relations, staff, Christina and Jeff and Roberta and several others really run alumni programs for the university. It's not just the medical college. I actually am learning that this year. I can't believe how busy they are, but boy, have they done an amazing job. And so a little update that Christina shared, 24 virtual alumni programs since July 1st, with more coming before the end of the year, 18 coming. So in case you're on the phone, you can't see these slides. Alumni from 43 states and 9 countries have tuned in. And all these recordings can be viewed on the Jefferson Alumni YouTube channel. So I would direct you to going on the Jefferson Alumni website. The Reunion Hub also is on the alumni website. You can actually see the whole reunion on there. So that's actually really wonderful. And I participated in like the Tapestry of Health sessions that were done, and some other, that was not specifically for alumni, but another Jefferson program. There's always something going on. There's been baseball, and there was taxes last night, and amazing. I think tonight or last night was fashion design. It's just, there's almost never a night where there's not something going on. So COVID connections really, we are learning as we go with this. I know that's probably overused as the word virtual and Zoom and all that is, but we really are learning. And this has really been an opportunity for us. While the COVID pandemic has been unbelievable for all of us, I think we have actually learned what we can do and what we will be able to do in the future, and how we do need to connect in different ways. Next slide. And I'm talking fast so I can get through this. Our committee work, so we have several committees that the board is chaired by, our board members. The Student Relations Committee is chaired by Erica Locke. And we're having virtual alumni student programs. Last night we had, and the students came up with this, Erica shared with us tonight, the Med Talks instead of TED Talks, selecting your specialty. This was last night. It was a wonderful a turnout of 170 students and alumni signed up to participate with this. We had Dr. Kelly Malloy give a little 15-minute spiel on her being an ear, nose, and throat doctor out in the University of Michigan. And at the end of that, I said, I think that's what I want to go into now. I think I'm going to do ENT. And it was so interesting. And then we heard from other people, other specialists. So that was wonderful. Great participation by the students. It was fun to do that. The next talk will be on December 1st. Life in medicine, and covering some other sort of non-traditional topics. So it's not about specialties then, but it will be about, careers in medicine, sort of a little maybe atypical, like military careers in medicine, academic medicine, LGBTQ, bicultural topics, sort of life in medicine topics. I'm really looking forward to that. So, and you're all welcome to participate in that. And then the wellness forum will take place in the winter, spring. We will send more information out about that, but that we'll be working with the students on that, about things that we do to, caregiver wellness, and how can we promote that. I think that will help all of us. Our second committee, Strategic Initiatives Committee, is led by Randy Wong, who's also our vice president. And this is actually transforming our alumni host program into a virtual experience for our fourth-year students. So my daughter's a fourth-year student. She's interviewing for residencies now. She's going into internal medicine. And they are doing all their interviews, as you probably all know, virtually. Everything is on Zoom. So, and it's not like an hour or two, it's like 6 to 8 hours on Zoom calls. So it's pretty interesting. Sometimes they have receptions the night before. So anyway, how do they get to learn about their city or about the hospital or the health center, the medical center that they're applying to? Well, we hope to be able to do this through our alumni host program. As of last count, we've had 68 alumni sign up to be hosts to help the student understand what their program is about, their specialties about, that part of the country. If it's someplace in Chicago or California or state of Washington, we have alumni in those areas. We need more people to sign up for this. And so we're hoping that this may entice some of you on the call on the Zoom tonight to maybe participate in that. There's a form. Everybody got that with an invitation to this alumni business meeting. There's a very easy form to fill out, a couple, demographic, what's your specialty, what would you be interested in participating in? You're not committed to anything, but whatever you think you can do. And it's really participating by Zoom with students. And then also, if you want to participate in any of these other programs, these virtual programs that we're doing that are mentioned under Student Relations Committee. We'll have time for questions at the end. So if you have any more about that. Our future work, again, I heard this loud and clear that, alumni still want to continue to be communicated with. So we communicate, I think, pretty well with the people we have emails for, but it's not, we don't have emails for everybody. So that's going to be one of our goals, is to try and update the contact information. I have an article in the bulletin coming out. You'll hear from us, emails, letters, updates. You directly contacting me. My contact information is on the last slide. Please feel free to get to me through the Alumni Relations Office or to me directly. I will get back to you. I welcome your input. The class agent program was mentioned tonight by Dr. Narika, and we are hoping to revive that program. Classes that have a class agent attached to them, and I'm the class agent for my class, one of the class agents, tend to be more connected and give back in other ways, connected in programs and also in philanthropy. So that's really important. We heard a little bit tonight, and there was a question that came in that we'll answer later about diversity and inclusion and what we're doing about that in this IDEA program. And it's called Jeff IDEA, IDEA. And that stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity Alliance. So we're very excited about where we're moving with that. And the Dean may mention that tonight as well. I talked about our board meetings and our committee work in between. And stay tuned for Alumni Weekend next year, we hope, in person, October 15th and 16th. So whether it's your milestone year or not, you're always welcome to join us for Reunion Weekend. Next slide. And I wanted to say a special thank you. I mean, we are in this COVID pandemic, and to thank all of you for whatever you are doing with your families, with your patients, with your staff, with students, residents alike. It's just incredible what we've been called on to do. And people look to us for hope to get us through this. We did leave with the students, and we were leaving with the alumni, and this is in my bulletin article. Our themes are really, we're going to get through this pandemic. We're going to learn a lot from it. And so there's a great song on YouTube, if you're into YouTube, called Rise Again, done by a virtual choir from Canada. It's amazing. It's a woman physician choir. And I've shared it with the board. And also we told the students that the theme song from Oklahoma, I'm not even sure they know what the Oklahoma musical is, but that the theme song, You'll Never Walk Alone. And that's what we told them, that you will not walk alone. Jefferson supports you. We support you. And we will welcome them with open arms as alumni, but we're going to be with them through their journey. And so thank you to all of you for what you're doing. And there's some contact information. I think this will be also posted. We can also show this at the end. So thank you all. We welcome your feedback. Please keep in touch with us. So this isn't just a once a year meeting, and so that we can help us do the things that need to get done. And with that, I think I'm just about on time for the dean's update. Dean Tykocinski.
Terrific, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen, and what I'd like to do is spend probably about 20 minutes or so going through this slide deck, and then leave time for questions and answer. There's for the more technologically savvy, which I don't consider myself, you might want to try, put the questions into the chat screen. Otherwise, we'll look for waving hands afterwards. And I'm in no rush afterwards, so I'll stay on as long as anybody would like to be here. And let me just get my screen to fill. There we go. So I want to touch on a couple of different things. First of all, it's just so incredibly gratifying to see all of you. And what I particularly love is that we've got the whole country represented now. One of the feelings that I had a couple of years back was we tended to focus on the tri-state area, and that really wasn't truly representative of who we are. And so if you look at who's on our board now, it represents a geographic range, a demographic range of all kinds. And this is really something that's just coming to life of what we wanted to do. I'm going to say a couple of things about the new Jefferson and some fun stuff, in particular around what I call health meets design. I know you're maybe curious about what's going on vis-a-vis Jefferson and the pandemic. Talk a little bit about what I call regional and global reach. Say a couple of things about research enterprise and showcase a few things, including Jefferson's vaccine, COVID vaccine, moving along. And then say a few words about our strategy. And then, depending on the time, I may or may not get into some details about what JeffMD is all about. But what I want to talk about is co-curriculum. What we talk about now in the medical college is education here isn't just curriculum. There's curriculum, and our new curriculum is this very, very exciting and different JeffMD curriculum. This year's fourth year class is the first to have completely gone through JeffMD. But we also have what we call co-curriculum. That's something that not everybody takes something different often. And we put it under this banner of Medicine Plus. Yes, we train in medicine, and we still give the strong clinical training that all of you knew when you were here in medical school. But we add this spice, which is cross-cutting knowledge domains. So it could be medicine plus design, medicine plus humanities, plus data sciences, plus policy. And then extra curriculum is what we do as we reach out into the communities and a lot of the other associations and programs that we do. But under the banner of Medicine Plus and Medicine Plus Design, a couple of years back, we started something we call Jeff Solves, where the students themselves do a brainstorming session and figure out and come up with a clinical problem to be solved that could be solved through some kind of human design project. And the exciting thing is that when we merged with this place that is nationally ranked in programs of industrial design, textiles, fashion, architecture, most recently called Philadelphia University, it gave us a whole new cadre of students to work from. So one of the companies, and it's one of about 15 startup companies that have come from second-year medical students, 6 to 9 month projects. They called it Connexo. On the left, you see 3 of our medical students, and every one is, more incredible than the other. Joey Leone was a former recovery worker, the Wedge. Anjali Patel, former translational research assistant at Penn. Healy Patel, former clinical research assistant at Cedars-Sinai. But on the right, you see 3 industrial design students. And they came together, working together on this project that led to something called Connexo. And what's Connexo? And again, I just want to emphasize, this is the creativity. They came up with the problem to be solved. We didn't just hand that to them. So they were focused in on Nora, who spent 70 days in an ICU and almost died. And why was that? She had a catheter-related bloodstream infection, and there are over 250,000 of those in the country. And the team said, well, very often that occurs because the connections in the IV lines, when you're connecting one end to the other, even if it just brushes up against the bed sheeting or something else, it picks up bacteria. So what could they do about it? And this is what they did about it. And this isn't like high-tech supercomputer, whatever kind of stuff. Because they were working with the industrial design students, they came up with a very simple thing where both ends that are going to be coupled together are recessed behind this springing elasticized material that then fits together and allows them to bring these connectors together. Incredibly ingenious. And this turns into a company. It's a guard system essentially for the IV line with enormous other opportunities. Another team, and these were just reported out literally about 2 weeks ago, said, well, babies in the NICU, the mothers breastfeed, but there's nothing there to sterilize and clean all of the paraphernalia that goes with it. So they came up, and their company is Steam and Spin. It looks like a salad spinner, but it's not. It really does have steam coming up, and it has all kinds of features in it that make it particularly appropriate. And again, it's got our medical college students shown there in the middle, but then flanked there on the sides on that picture by industrial design students. And yet another project just from this year, they came up with a name, with the graphics, with everything. They called it Calicor. And for the orthopedic surgeons on the call, you may know that, and the pediatricians, very often kids get these procedures and they're put into these casts, and then you say, okay, go home. Well, they can't fit into the car seat. And this is what the kids, our students figured out. And so they came up with this notion of don't fit the child to the car seat, fit the car seat to the child, because if you don't, then their head's bent in, it compresses their chest and their breathing and everything like that. So they came up with these ingenious designs around how you can essentially make every part of that car seat sort of flexible, moving in and out, etc. These are 2 projects from the prior year. This on the left, Respiro, they sort of came up with this notion that anesthesiologists, surgeons are at risk when they're standing around and there's leakage of anesthetic gas. And there's a whole literature about that and how that can be a problem. So they came up with an ingenious modification of the mask that the patient's wearing during anesthesia that essentially vents away the anesthetic gas, and that's built into it. And then because we have one of the leading places in the country now in the area of textiles, another one was dampening sound for babies in NICU. There's a lot of ambient sound, which can be problematic. And there's a lot more, but what I sort of wanted to get across is some really fun stuff. The students are, again, doing their medicine and doing it with no sacrifice, but at the same time, we're creating these avenues, and in this case, to cultivate creativity. How do we nurture human design thinking among the students? Now, I know there was some question about what we might be doing in terms of diversity and inclusion. And one of the things that we're particularly keyed in on is facing health disparities. And just in the last month and a half, notwithstanding COVID, we've had some major symposium which happened to revolve around diversity. There was one that had over 900 attendees, and it was really interesting because it brought together our strengths in autism, but at the same time, the architecture people who thought about built environments as they relate to autism. We have a powerhouse now at Jefferson in the area of computational biology and computational medicine. One of the recruits I'm ultimately going to be most proud of during my tenure here, Isadora Gutsos. And so we had really the think tank of the big data world calling into this symposium, which was several years in the making. And our piece of that focused around health disparities, disease disparities, some incredible work that goes on there. And now for something completely different, understanding the harm caused by solitary confinement. Sometimes underrepresented minorities have to deal with that in particular. And then there's the American Medical Women's Association, and we, by chance, as fate, we were the host for the national meeting, and that was held and brought a lot of great limelight. And then a really fun thing just yesterday, and if you didn't tune into it, we can get you a link for it because it was taped. But I was in conversation with a quantum physicist cosmologist who has worked with the likes of Richard Feynman, and amazing. He happens to be a jazz musician who played with Ornette Coleman, and he wrote a book, The Jazz of Physics. And I had heard him in another podcast and decided we had to bring him in. So for our Jefferson Humanities Forum, it was really just a fascinating conversation with Stefan Alexander. We have a record number of students from underrepresented minorities in the incoming class. A grouping of them are here, are the Algernon B. Jackson Scholars. And so we had a Zoom reception where I got to meet the incoming classes. You can see me sort of wedged in there in the middle, near the bottom, and a great amount of energy that goes with that. And in fact, we have an annual education retreat in the medical college. That was how Jeff MD in the first place came about. And this year, the crew decided that we would focus on race and bias in medical education, conversion to action. And so very interesting actionable items will come from this. Every one of these annual retreats leads to actionable items. This is not just sort of pontificating out there in the abstract. I mentioned Medicine Plus. The newest one we just added is Medicine Plus Music. And you see two of our medical students performing in one of the public spaces in the hospital here for that. And just in general, life goes on. The difference being that it's masked. Now, this has been a year like no other year, of course, and we were guided by three general principles. When you're facing once in a century type of this, with literally every morning's sets of decisions and that you have to make in uncharted waters, the only way to deal with that is to have some higher principles. What are the principles? And then that leads you to the right kinds of answers. And so our three principles in approaching this were, number one, academic progression. We wanted to do everything possible not to have the students derailed. In the case of the medical students, LCME requires 36 months. We have 39 months of programming. That gave us 3 months latitude. So we were able to pull the students off from the clinical areas early on in the pandemic when we didn't have enough protective equipment and there were all kinds of questions for 2 months, and yet not derail them from graduation. The second principle, which is huge for us and for me, especially these days, is mental health. We have an absolute epidemic of mental health going on in our medical colleges in this country. I don't want to sound like a downer here, but I was just put on to the Council of Deans, the AAMC's Council of Deans Administrative Board. It's the leadership group or the national meeting. And we had a breakout session of, as part of an annual meeting with, I don't think there were more than 20 deans there. One dean described 2 medical students who've committed suicide since the pandemic. Another dean spoke of another suicide. And those were just 2 out of 20. And I'm sure there might have been others who didn't even speak up. It was horrifying. I just happened, we have 28 department chairs in the medical college, and I have an annual catch-up meeting individually with each one of them. And literally 2 days ago, one of them tells me that he has a grandchild who attempted suicide. This is one of our chairs, and another who, the son of a nephew who did commit suicide. I mean, this is horrible. This is horrible. And the chances that these kids will get sick physically from COVID-19 are infinitesimal. The chance that something happens to them in terms of, the consequence of their mental state is far, far, far higher. And it makes me feel really good because the other hat I wear is provost of the university. And we were one of only 3 universities in this area that decided to stay open. And I could not feel more justified in doing what we did. And by the way, there's not a single documented case of a student and the entire university getting COVID from a classroom or getting it in a clinical area. So it can be done. Penn, Drexel, Temple, all went completely online. We didn't. And one of the tools that we came up with this incredibly powerful web-based real-time dashboard. You can't really appreciate it here in static, but I don't think there are many, if any, universities that have the kind of information we have at all times. At any moment, we can tell you trends, persons under investigation, students in isolation, students in quarantine. And we even have dashboards that drill down into the number of mental health visits of students by day, the cleaning, when the rooms have been cleaned. I mean, this is like a moon landing organization. And I couldn't be more proud of the leadership, the administrative leadership of the university, in the medical college, for how we have confronted the crisis. Looking at it from a university standpoint, you see this bump that happened in early October. Turns out that was largely driven by undergraduates. They had decided to get under the Henry Avenue Bridge and have a little Friday night party. The students themselves weighed in and created a campaign, and you can see where that's gone. And we're talking about, these are the number of active cases as of about a week ago. It hasn't changed much since. And if you look at other universities that opened around the country, the numbers are literally 1 to 2 log orders higher, even when you correct for that. So we're going to have, so far, I don't want to jinx it, but we have a great story to tell about bringing our students back. The university, of course, sits in Center City, what we call here Washington Square West. But we now, because of the merger 40 months ago, we have the East Falls campus. This is a new building shown here, the Ronson Health Center that was put up on that campus. And we have other campuses. If we look beyond the medical college, one of the things that turns out to be really interesting is this Jefferson Institute for Bioprocessing, which I'll say a few words about. And then we've created satellite campuses for particular programs like physician assistant programs, et cetera. And then, of course, to the clinical affiliates that most of you are familiar with, we've added, including for Delaware, Christiana Nemours and Mainline and Einstein. Just a few years ago, we added Atlantic Health in Morristown, New Jersey. And that they used to be with Mount Sinai of New York. And they are turning into a great partner with great experiences for our medical students. But as we look forward, we have some major projects we want to look forward to. And the research has really gone great here for the university. And so we got a $70 million foundational gift from the Kimmels to create the Caroline Kimmel Research Building. This is a architect's rendering of what that will look like. This is the Blumley building This right here is Locust Street. And this will be a very, very special building. And it's slated, we're committed to the Kimmels to have this up and going by 2027. So for us, that's quite exciting. And then there's other building capital projects that we are looking to on the East Falls campus. It's not just that we have more than one campus locally, but we really have a lot of exciting things going on globally. And having taken over also as provost, I really pushed hard for this notion of focus, focus, focus. We just don't have the resources, the energies to diffuse our energies and resources. So the idea was, let's pick a handful of countries where we go deep. We develop actual Jefferson centers, and we are multi-institutional in scope, and it can lead to money. And so for a long time under Joe Ganella's leadership, Japan became very important for us. So the first formal global center we established is the Jefferson Japan Center. They've always, since the Joe Ganella days, been very interested in what we do around humanism and medicine. Charlie Pohl is our person leading that. And so that has moved forward. From Christiana, the former head of OBGYN has now come here to Center City, Richard Derman, who has incredibly deep relationships in India, major programs in women and children, in particular, with Gates Foundation funding, World Health Organization funding, and then also the major eye institute of all of Asia is now allied with us there. Just an example. As you know, again, through Joe, we've had years of relationships in Italy, and we've now elevated that to another level. Our former head of transplant surgery, who went back to become mayor of Rome, is now back with us. He's the gala honoree, by the way. His name is Ignazio Marino, and some great things we're doing around the Italy Center. Israel Center is something we've pushed really hard. In particular, in their largest medical center, we're coordinating with them on the COVID vaccine, by example, and a lot of other things, as well as both Northern and Southern Ireland. And then there are a number of countries in Africa where we've had the medical college has had strong programming in Rwanda for years. We've now added a few other countries, Malawi in particular, our architecture group, and then work we're doing in Latin America. I just want to say one or two things here around research. We have really built it up. And one of the things I now will have been here by the end of this month, 12 years as your dean. And when I got here, the programmatic grant number was 1. I'm only showing it here from 2017. And even in just the last 3 or 4 years, we've gone up to 53 programmatic grants here. As a consequence, we've more than doubled the research funding here. And that's part of the reason why we're planning on a new research building. We're now at and this is not even updated, but we're over $160 million. That's not quite Hopkins, but this starts to get very credible in what we're doing. And it's really the caliber of the science. And so, for example, we have had an incredible strength in natural immunity and acquired immunity to emerging infections. And that has put us in the place for the COVID-19 race. You'll see here on the bottom right, the various types of approaches, vaccine approaches to COVID-19 that are out there. And we fit into that viral vector approach. And so Matthias Schnell, our chair of microbiology and immunology, took the rabies virus, which is one of the most effective vaccines mankind has ever created. It's been given safely to hundreds of millions of people. And he simply, early in the pandemic, engineered it so these little red triangles would be expressed, and that is COVID-19. So when this thing is injected, you get immunity not only to rabies virus and its strong, durable immunity, but you'll also get durable immunity to the COVID-19 antigen. And by the way, that, with all the hoopla with Pfizer this week and everybody else, there is no data that I'm aware of to say that, yes, maybe it gives you immunity, but is that lasting immunity? and they say, well, they have levels of convalescent plasma. Well, we have 20-fold the level of convalescent plasma. And we can actually, 2 months after immunization, you can see this experiment done for us at the University of Texas Galveston Medical Branch, where they have the definitive hamster models. You can inject boatloads of the virus into their lungs, and then 3 days later, the immunized animals, you can't even see any virus here. So we've licensed this to one of the largest manufacturers of vaccine in the world, a company in India called Bharat for the developing world. They've already scaled hundreds of thousands. I think they're actually in the millions of doses. They stopped producing their usual rabies virus vaccine and converted all to Coravax. And the first people will be injected in the trial literally in the next couple of weeks. So we're pretty excited. And the beauty of this is, unlike the Pfizer, the RNA vaccines, which literally are too expensive and have to be kept frozen, this one is set for the entire global world. So regardless, and we hope the Pfizer vaccines and Moderna work, we certainly hope that. But the reality is we've got 7 billion people on the planet, and I'm quite confident that Coravax, as we call it, which is for corona rabies, that was my contribution, was giving it its name, will be a winner there. There's a lot of other good things going on, and I'm not going to belabor it. For instance, the chair of pharmacology, Scott Waldman, who I think many of you know, is on track to do unbelievable stuff for GI cancers. He's starting with colon cancer, and has developed immunotherapeutic approaches that specifically target this GCC protein. And for a whole variety of reasons, we think this is really going to be something that is effective. And he's already heading into clinical trials around that. And then I mentioned our work on computational medicine. And there's just unbelievable, without hyperbole, work going on in the area of using computational tools to discover whole new classes, shown here, of small RNAs. And this is creating an entirely new set of markers, diagnostic markers, not just for cancer, as shown here, but for other diseases. So I'd like to, I'm not going to belabor things, just to say that, as you know from your interactions and reading the alumni bulletin and everything, this is not the same Jefferson that you attended. We were the fastest growing academic medical center in the United States. We now have a bigger clinical footprint than Penn. We've got 14 hospitals, over 4 million patient visits. This is a major, major enterprise. And we also merged 2 universities. So we went from 3,700 students to almost 8,000 students at this university. That is the new Jefferson. And so in bringing these things together, we have something called a strategic academic framework. And there's a lot of just really exciting things. This is sort of the major strategic initiatives for the next 2 years. I mentioned this Jefferson Institute for Bioprocessing. We are the place in America now for training people for the biopharmaceutical industry. We literally have had millions of dollars of contracts in the last 2 to 3 weeks, from the likes of GSK and Merck, because the bottleneck in producing vaccines and producing monoclonals is not new discovery. It is, their bottleneck is people who know how to produce these things. So that's just an example of the kinds of things that we're doing here. I just also want to just highlight right here this Jefferson Institute for Advanced Study as part of our elevating and creating a ever greater community of scholars here. And so we had one of the top health leaders in Europe. He headed up Italy's equivalent of the NIH, and he was here as a visiting scholar last year. This program is headed up by Dr. Peter Scholes, who happens to be on the screen here, one of our great alumni, and just a lot of really exciting things. We've got some great people planning to come to campus in the spring, hopefully when our campus can open up a bit more. I mentioned the global centers. We're creating pathways for international dual degrees. Again, Dr. Scholes has been the pivot and the key person in making that sort of thing happen. You see here these assured admission linkages. You probably read in the alumni bulletin, our first was pathways leading to medicine plus design with Princeton University. We've now expanded that considerably beyond. I'm just gonna, I think what I'd rather do here is, I do want to leave time for Q&A. So I'm not going to go through the full set of remaining slides. Let me just make, 2 or 3 points here. First of all, we're since 1824, our medical college has been a pioneer of medicine, but also of medical education. We have, as you know, the Center for Research and Medical Education, which came about through the efforts of Joe Ganella originally, the longest longitudinal assessment of medical education outcomes. We had we still do the physician shortage area program. Over a fifth of practicing physicians in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania trained at Jefferson. Our Penn State program has been a key cornerstone, and we're probably easily one of the top 2 or 3 medical schools in the country on interprofessional education. But we've continued that and built since I've been here. We've created just a few years ago the first Department of Integrative Medicine and Nutritional Sciences in an allopathic med school, or any med school, frankly, in the country. We used our Atlantic Health new branch as a branch campus and to launch an entirely new kind of curriculum called a longitudinally integrated curriculum. It's the kind of curriculum that you see now at Harvard and UCSF. It's, we can't roll it out given our large class size for all our students, but this gives us a toe in the water of that kind of curriculum. I mentioned international dual MD, and we talked a bit about Medicine Plus. So I'm gonna just run through this because I really would prefer to, to talk. But I do want to say, let me just say, use this slide to talk about Jeff MD. That curriculum focuses on optimizing learning through a range of creative instructional formats, very heavy on small group pedagogy. We got rid of over half the lectures. And it's intensely case-based learning now, right from the get-go for the students. At first, we were wondering, would we take a hit when they took the STEP exams? Because we're not teaching to the STEP exams. We're teaching for them to learn and to question and ask. And it turns out they didn't miss a beat. If anything, they did slightly better on average, and they generally do quite well anyway. We elevate with threads: health system science, evidence-based medicine, humanities, professionalism, wellness, as thematic threads. And for the first time in our 200-year history, that we have a scholarly inquiry requirement. Every student has to do some kind of scholarly project, ideally leading them to present at a meeting or write up an abstract or even a publication. Up here on the top right, the features of it deeply integrates basic and clinical science. As I said, it features early clinical exposure for students, and importantly, early development of specialty interest, including opportunities for tracking. And this, I think, is another real strength for what we've done here. I also want to say here on the bottom left that we've created the deans, and we have an amazing group of student affairs deans and academic affairs deans in the medical college now and in other areas. They created these incredibly powerful digital apps, which now many other med schools want to get from Jefferson. So for instance, they created this thing called JeffCat, Jefferson Competency Assessment Tool, where basically for each student, every question they answer on every test, every clinical experience and exposure is documented. So we know where their strengths are, where their competencies, where their weaknesses are, et cetera. We have this JTOG for interprofessional education experiences. The latest addition this past year was something we call Jeff Rate. How do I identify from a student who their great experiences were, or those few bad apples that they confronted of faculty who mistreated them and treated them poorly. And so we now have granular information down to the individual faculty to identify, who the keepers are and where some of those problems lie. So this whole concept of assessment and tracking becomes deep, because I have a dream. One of my dreams is to do away with step exams in this country. And the idea is, if we can really map competencies as it's unfolding over time, why would we have to do a summative exam where people, the kids are cramming for 7-8 weeks only to forget most of that information anyway? There's got to be a better way for assessment. And that's sort of the idea. I told you I led with this idea of medicine plus design. But again, it's only one of the pathways. We have medicine plus humanities, data sciences, and policy. And Mike Stillman, working with Peter Scholes, have now created a whole suite of assured admission linkages. This isn't even a complete. And I was really thrilled this year, even within COVID, to get an honorary degree from our namesake, Washington and Jefferson. We were founded when McClellan galloped his horse in 1824 across the state to Jefferson College, which is how we got the original paperwork that would allow us to be Jefferson. 10 years later, in 1834, we got our own charter from Harrisburg, and they merged with Washington colleges years ago. And so it was, for me, a really special to get this honorary degree from Washington and Jefferson. It really builds on a relationship that Peter Scholes had, cultivated with them. And of course, the Jefferson that has been also about extracurriculum, reaching out. And this is really a sampling of the incredible suite of activities. And I often say, even though our brochures are not as good as many others, if you ask which medical college in the country has the most real things that students do in reaching out to communities and what they do, I've yet to learn about a place that does more than Jefferson. So I'm going to sort of stop there, and if we can take an extra couple of minutes, we'll open it up for some questions. So you can sort of wave your.
Thank you, Dr. Tykocinski.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. That was amazing. I took pictures of your slides, even though I know I can probably get a copy of them. They were amazing.
We could distribute them to everyone.
There is just so much. It's
yeah.
a great review. Jeff,
I just realized there's one other thing I want to add here, because you got to be careful what you read in newspapers. And so there was, people have asked questions. Well, how is Jefferson doing financially, during the pandemic? And there were some, and there was a major financial challenge, no doubt. But we went into this incredibly strong financially, with A ratings from both Moody's and S&P. Our team built up a war chest, of cash. So we haven't even begun to go through cash. And we've already seen the turnaround, come about. So we did have to take, we took our approach was we would not do reductions in force, that we protect jobs in this terrible economy. It did mean that we had to suspend benefits for everyone, retirement benefits for the year. It did mean that we didn't get cost of living increases. It did mean that we had a big hit to incentives, starting with me and Steve Klasko and the head of the clinical, Bruce Meyer. But that was the approach that we took, and the turnaround that we see now and the V-shaped comeback financially is there. So you may have seen this really vicious article written by the business guy at Philadelphia Inquirer, and it was just completely off base. We are surviving, and we will be thriving. There's just no question about it. I've just been in meetings for the re-rating with Standard & Poor's and Moody's, and we'll have to see how it ultimately goes. But the body language and the sense we got is they were actually quite impressed with what we were doing, what the leadership was doing here at Jefferson. So let me stop there. And
That's great. I know this could go on because we have so much to share. I did want to recognize a few people who joined us. Dr. Marianne Ritchie was on, former president. She is driving now, I think. Dr. Robert Cohen, Dr. Milton Sands, and the phone number. Melissa Salazar joined us from Advancement. And I'm just going to put a plug in there. I went to the Jefferson Gala last year for my first time. I'd never done that before. I bought it like a single ticket, and I went and I sat, and it was one of these where you see all these people, all these things that are going on, and students were there. It was wonderful. I'm putting this out there for the 28 people who are on. If anybody wants to go to the gala this year, it's run a little differently. It's virtual. You get a dinner. And there's Melissa's on. She can probably fill us in. But anyway, you can be my guest. So I'll just let that out. You can contact the Alumni Relations Office, and I'll get you a ticket. So we'll work out the logistics. It's December 3rd in the evening. But I thought it was a wonderful way to celebrate all things Jefferson. So that was unannounced. Christina, as you're probably thinking, what is she doing? This wasn't part of the program. Okay. So Jeff put in the chat that we can ask questions by the chat or unmute yourself. So please, you can raise your hand too, I think. But.
You're my bosses. I always say that management, which means people like me, we're servants. Board members come and go. Faculty, many do stay a lifetime, but they come and go. The one thing that doesn't go, regardless of whether you like name changes or things like that, are the alumni. And so really, this is being run for the alumni because you are the owners. Ted, I think you're talking, but you're on mute. So.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I was just curious if the questions we submitted in advance were available.
They are, yes. And so we can go through those. And Dr. Rayfield, you also?
Yes, I just was.
We'll get to that.
I just thought that your review was excellent. And I just wondered, can we, Mark, is there any way we have a copy of this that we can send out to the alums? Because I think a lot of people have no idea what's going on here. And you captured in 20 minutes like such new material and some not so new that people just don't know about, that I think it would be great if we could get it out there to the masses of Jeff alums.
Yeah.
Dr. Rayfield, we are recording. So we will have a recording of the meeting that will include the dean's talk that you can share the link if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would be glad to. I'm a little reluctant to send the actual slides broadly. I'm more than glad to share it with the people on the screen here.
I wasn't thinking about the slides. I was thinking just about
the message.
The message.
Yeah.
I don't know how practical that is, though.
Well, this will be available as Christina said on the web.
Sure.
So people will be able to link into it, and I also will be doing more. I did one pre-COVID, but I'm more than glad, as the Alumni Association leadership would like, to do more of these sessions, to do webinars, town hall formats, that sort of thing, to try to get the word out. And I mean, I've just given you a snapshot, a very narrow snapshot, frankly, and there would be no shortage of material to take some different angles on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kessner, I don't know which questions were yours, but they came in anonymously. Jeff, do you want me to, where Jeff is on here? Should we go through those, or?
Sure. I think that Dr. Tykocinski's presentation addressed most of the questions that we received in advance. Dr. Kessner, we do have a question from you about the new curriculum, the Jeff MD curriculum, and how it's working out. And I don't know, Dr. Tykocinski, if you have anything additional to add from what you presented.
Yeah, sure. So we, the curriculum is divided into these three phases. The first phase is what we used to think of as just the basic science piece. That was shortened, by a couple of months, and that was the one part that was incredibly overhauled. So phases 1 and 3 were the ones that were mostly overhauled. That was where we got rid of a lot of lectures, went into CBL groups, and there's a lot more than just going to case-based learning. So, with all the different threading and early clinical experiences and so on. The phase 3, which the students are going through for the first cohort, is radically different. I mean, a lot, it used to be sort of in a way a throwaway year, other than doing the sub internship. And now there's nothing throw out about it. It's all highly planned experiences. It truly is a prep for internship, allows for immersion into subspecialties. So, every indication is, and what we're being told by the attendings when the students come in for phase 2 in the clinical areas, and this is a repeated thing from many people, they can't believe these are only second year, rising third year students. They say they're coming in with a level of clinical of being able to think through clinical problems at an entirely different level. So we're feeling really good about this curriculum, and we're confident, frankly, that we're on the right track with it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dr. Norika.
You have to unmute. Yeah. Dr. Norika, we have to unmute.
You're still muted.
Let's try that. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, you're great.
Okay, great. Hey, Dr. Tykocinski, one of the greatest challenges that medical students face coming out of school is student debt. And I didn't hear anything about that. And I wondered if Jefferson has any organized system or plans or outreach to help students with their debt, because it influences so many decisions, so many forks in the road going forward.
Yeah, great. Key point. And frankly, it's a problem. We have to address it because it's the right thing to do to address it. And it's also important because accreditation depends on it. And if you look at what's called the tuition discount rate, we have not done very well as a medical college compared to the 145 other allopathic med schools in the country. We just don't have the level of scholarship. So even though we have the largest alumni base of any med school in the United States, that's not reflected. Now, the good news is we are on this major campaign. The restructuring under Elizabeth Dale and the Office of Institutional Advancement has really been dramatic, absolutely dramatic, and the level of giving. And so we're on the reimagine, what she's calling, and they're calling the reimagine campaign. And one of the major beneficiaries will be, endowing student scholarships. And we've already had, considerable traction, but we still do have a long way to go. So this is not part of our success story yet, but we are building the number of endowed professorships. I think just in the last 5 years, we've had, I don't know, Christina, but it must be about 20 to 25 new endowed professorships. We hope to get yet another 20 or 25 over the next 2 or 3 years, but also driving those endowed scholarships. One of our ideas, has been, looking and getting alumni to come together in groupings. So, for instance, let's pick Northern Virginia. A given alumnus may not feel like they can, have the dollars to endow a full scholarship. Well, what if 5 alumni came together and together endowed a scholarship, and could be for specified students coming from their region, as an example. So this is a big priority for us. Now, the one area where we have been extremely proactive is in diversifying our class, because that has been a challenge, and it's also another thing that's important for accreditation, frankly. And so last year, we created 11 full freight scholarships for Black students coming in, and that was reflected in having essentially doubling the number of incoming Black students that had ever been here. The most previously had been about 7, and this year we had 15 incoming students, fantastic students, academically fantastic. And by having that kind of scholarship available, that allowed us to be competitive, because these students are being sought after by many med schools that are out there. Now, we can't afford to do that endlessly, because that there was no even endowment scholarship dollars backing that up. We just took the hit, frankly, in absorbing that into our budget, and it's always zero sum. So when you do that, there's certain things that you stop doing in order to allow yourself to do that. So so Christina, her charge is to go out there and get endow those scholarships, so they don't have to come out of our operating budget, moving forward. But
can I say one thing?
Sure.
What I'd like to say is that in my current position as class agent for 76, and in talking to my colleagues and classmates, they are looking for specific reasons to write checks to Jefferson. Very specific reasons, because, and I'm thinking that here's one that I could sell. And I need infrastructure, though. I need to know how best to get it done. And of course, you're a great face to put in front of alums, obviously, just from the job you did tonight. But I think that if we can address this, they can relate to the student debt problem. And I think that they'd be willing to support a program like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know one of the questions that came in tonight, so just to put some numbers on there, what are the current costs for students, tuition and fees? That also came up at the reunion. I can speak because I'm a parent. The tuition's about $59,600, something like that, pretty close to $60,000. And room and board is, depending on where they live, we say maybe additional $20,000. So it's about an $80,000 ticket. So I guess, I think it's good when people have the concrete numbers. I know the dean shared that at the reunion. But I have to say, Jefferson will give grants and scholarships. They're small, but $2,500, $5,000, whatever, but every dollar counts for those students. And I hear that a lot from the students who are thinking about medical school, or, how am I going? And I tell them that, a lot of the schools will be able to help you, but we do need more funds to be able to do that. So I think, to your point, your class and our classes, maybe they can't do an $80,000, scholarship, but maybe they could do a $5,000 one or a $2,000 one. Every dollar counts. I see some hands up there.
I'd like to say that I'm a class agent for 1967. And 9 years ago, I came up with the idea of a class of 1967 scholarship. Well, it needed $100,000 to be fully vetted. But it took 7 years, and 2 years ago, or actually like a year ago, was one of the students from one of our alums, and his wife, who's 2 years younger, they brought it over the mark of $100,000. So I don't think that these scholarships necessarily have to come from regions. They could come from classes, and it doesn't have to take 7 years, but I think what you can get, you can tell them how much it costs, $60,000 a year, and it's been done before. It's not cracking the genetic code, and I'll be happy to help you with doing it for your class.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Goals.
Yep.
Yeah, this beats goals. I'm class agent 70. We put in a class scholarship program in 2007. I think to date we're up at about 150 or 160,000 for our 50th reunion. I think we're going to try to hit donations of $250,000, for which Jeff will match another 125. That's our goal. If anybody wants to chat about it, I'd be happy to speak with them.
That's great to hear.
Right.
Thank you. Is anybody else? I'm looking to see if hands are up. Dr. Melissa Salazar is on. She's happy to hear these great numbers you find.
I'm happy to see so many class Asians who work with my colleague Shelby Palmer, and I apologize for the delay. We were managing our Rams Rise Up Challenge, which happy to say was a great success. But I'm happy to have additional conversations about, the case for support with regard to students, and have some really exciting news to share as well, that we have been building a series of videos, which we're calling sort of the JeffMD from start to finish. It's had a couple different names, a day in the life. That's really going to outline what the academic program is, because we think that's going to help build that case for support that Dr. Narika has been talking about. So if anyone is interested, I'm happy to put a gathering together and create some open dialogue for all of you to share your best practices, and also how we can come together to support our current students and their needs. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Right. Thanks, Melissa.
Is Irfan still on? I don't think Irfan's still on. Let me, one of the questions, how does SKMC prepare senior med students to match at competitive internships?
Yeah, so this is going to be, really tough year for, for our kids, really, because, they're so reliant on audition electives, where they do it at other places, and and now everything, being done from a distance. So there's the sort of outgoing and the incoming. From the outgoing standpoint, what I've asked each of our 21 clinical chairs is to make it a personal mission, to student by student. If you're the chair of urology, well, those students that are planning on applying to urology, figure out what their first and second choices are and make the phone call. So we're really thinking in terms of taking our top faculty leaders and adopting a student and making those kinds of contacts. So I think that's part of what we're, the message. Now, the truth be told, this is true for everyone. So it's not like our students are disadvantaged relative to others, but it does require going the extra yard. And our fact, I don't want you to think that hasn't been the case. When we have each year, when you do the official computerized match, often we'll end up with about 9 to 12 students who didn't match. And then there's a couple of days of what's called scramble. And, our scramble students do incredibly well. They end up at little places like Mass General. And it doesn't just happen, because what happens is our chair of neurosurgery will call, his buddy up at Mass General and say, I got a great student, and it was just the quirk of this match, and he didn't do it. And there, that student is headed off there. So we have this history of, especially for the more competitive residencies. It doesn't really happen in the less competitive, larger sort of residency matches, but there is that, going the extra yard for students. And of course, if you look at the match record, it's incredible. And, we have Dean Trace on your committee now here. I'm looking at her. She's spectacular. But, the dedication that she and her other deans, for student affairs do, and working to, year on and year out, and getting our students matched is pretty remarkable. And they really do end up in, very great places. On the incoming side, it's probably even more tough. The Jefferson name is strong. So we're not particularly concerned about our students matching out there. The challenge is getting students to know Jefferson and want to pick our place high on their match list. So we've invested in a considerable amount through our marketing and PR in videos, these short, 4-minute type videos, which basically half of it sells Jefferson, half of it sells that particular department at Jefferson. And so we don't have it for all the residency programs, but we are doing it. We've done it for a substantial number of them where the chairs have been interested, and we'll just see how this works out. We did have a flurry, unfortunately, of rising fourth-year students that last minute decided to take a year off. And I think it's because they just didn't want to deal with this, So unfortunately, for the unfortunate is we took a hit on tuition. We have, 40 applicants, and this year the number has shot up even higher, applicants per slot. So we could readily fill classes, but then to go with sort of unfilled positions because students drop out last minute was really a little tough. And again, I don't want to overblow this, but it was probably an extra 8 or 10 students that decided to do that. And frankly, in coming years, we probably are going to make it a little tougher for them to do that. It's fine to take off a year. We love that, to do something useful, but you got to let us know, a couple of months ahead of time. You can't let us know with 3 days left and then, have us sort of, holding the bill, sort of, so to speak.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. Jay Sands.
Dr. Sands, yes. Okay.
64. Is there any possibility of generating a way to give potential students financial advice in terms of trying to supersede this extraordinary cost for medical education? Somebody that will work with them to help them to figure out how they're going to pay for it and who will help them to pay for it, like the military or something like that. Do you have anything going on there?
Well, I think students, I don't know, Catherine, maybe you want to say something about that in terms of how we handle the students on that.
Sure. So we have a financial aid office that works one-on-one with all the students for various payment plans and scholarship and securing different funding. And then nationally, the AAMC and some of the other major organizations do run series and instructional videos and stuff geared toward medical students to help them understand some of the long-term financial implications. The challenge with these students is they're all kind of so in the, academics, and it's hard for them to kind of even wrap their head around, 5 years, 10 years and stuff down the road. So we do have programs which they definitely take part in. They have to do mandatory exit interviews with the financial aid office if they have loans to help them. But yeah, the cost is just extraordinary and definitely a major stressor for our students and impacts their career choice and what they're able to do.
Thank you.
Our general, if I could just say, this is sort of my top level thinking had been, when we did the naming gift, the Sidney Kimmel naming, that came with $110 million gift. And originally, at the very beginning, Sidney said, use it any way you want. He put no restrictions on it. Just take Jefferson and take it to the next level. I decided, along with President Klasko, that we would restrict it. Because if I got hit with a Mack truck the next day, I didn't want to be remembered as the dean who gave away the Jefferson Medical College name with nothing in return. And somebody had the bright idea of spending it out, in like 2 years. So we said about a third of it would go to, student scholarships. So, but we did it, and we created a sort of a match. So the idea was, if we had about 35 million and we did a 1-to-2 match, meaning for every, originally we started with 1-to-1, but then 1-to-2 match. So we could turn the 35 million into 90 or 100 million. And if you do the math, let's just round it down and say $50,000 per student, you divide, and then 100 million with let's say round it up to about a 5% annual return would give you about 5 million, and divide that by 50,000, you end up with 100 full freight scholarships or 200 half freight scholarships. So you start to make a difference there. And the dream would be to get another Kimmel-like scale gift and to continue that match. But If we could get to the point where, we had in aggregate raised, $200 million, through a combination of the gift and then subsequent match donations to the matches. And if you have that kind of corpus, then you make a really big difference. And frankly, this was sort of the strategy that Penn followed. When they did their naming gift, the Abramson gift, that came with, that already came with about a $200 million price tag, or even a little more. I can't remember exactly. And they instantly said the entirety of that gift would be going towards scholarships. And you say, well, does Penn really have to do that? Well, in their mind, yes, because they're, trying to take away students from, Harvard in their minds. I think our education's better, by the way, having had, 2 daughters that went to Penn Med, and I can pretty much tell you, unfortunately, their education was not anywhere near what a Jeff clinical education is. But that's sort of that's sort of the logic here. The logic is, can we build up a corpus that, if you look out in a 10, 15-year time frame, puts us in a position where we can do substantial, offset.
Well, this sounds good. The scholarship thing sounds good. I'm thinking more in terms of being practical, in that a lot of folks are not eligible for scholarships, academically or otherwise, but would need some guidance in terms of where they can gain the finances necessary to get through 4 years. What is an available or are available loan programs? What does the military offer? What are the options that are available to them that don't require them to do some of the things that I used to have to do to get through medical school?
Yeah, and me too, by the way. I spent my first 2 years working 3 days a week, 8 to 12 in the blood, in the hematology labs, to make money to make my way through. So I completely agree with you, but I don't want you to think there's not any financial counseling. So there is, the financial aid office is there, and it is available to them. It works with them. So I think what you're suggesting, though, is, and I'll take that back with me. That suggestion of, can we be more deliberate, more systematic, with the students? I think that's entirely reasonable. Let me tell you one other thing, which is not what you're addressing specifically, but and I'll say it by way of a very quick anecdote. So when we merged with Philadelphia University, and I had to get a second ID, so I could get into those buildings, out on that East Falls campus, I went in and I go into this back room and getting my photo taken, and I see this young girl, college girl, looks like any of the other college students, going to a wall that had cans of food, including like Campbell's soup and things like that. And so after she left, the person who's taking my picture, my photo ID, said, "What's that all about?" And she says, "Oh, that's Ramilly." I said, "What's Ramilly?" "Well, that's for students that can't afford food." Now you have to understand, this was sitting 50 feet away from 2 different dining halls that we have. Okay. Lavish food and pizza and everything. And I was in shock. Suddenly it hit me that I said, "Is that how many?" Said, "Oh yeah, there are quite a few students." So we have college students, and it turns out it's also students in our graduate programs, including our health programs, who literally are food insecure. Literally food insecure. So, so we created, within a month or two, something that, and since here everything is Jeff this, Jeff that, we call this one Jeff Secure. And so and then I got the clinical side and said, "Look, if we raise X, will you, the clinical side, match that?" So, we put together, we all sort of threw in the hat and, got in, and, and we put together, now we're getting together around 100,000 a year. It doesn't sound like a lot. But students, they don't have to prove anything. All they just say, I'm if they step forward. And by the way, it's not just for food, because there are actually undergraduates at our place that we found out were living out of their car. And it's just unbelievable, right? So this is not just, go and here we are focused on the inner city and Jeff Hope and the homeless and all of that. And then we suddenly find out we have our own students, some cadre of our own students who can't afford to buy food in our own dining halls, and this. And so they can also apply, if there's a death in the family, they need transportation home or for whatever emergencies. We're not talking about a lot, but we're talking about $100 or $200 or, in aliquots, but to sort of tide people over and help them with that kind of stuff. So we want to do much more around that front. And Christina or Melissa, we did, or Jeff, what did we call where we raised $7 million now for in the pandemic?
The Better Together Fund.
The Better Together Fund. So internally, we raised, when we started with people, the senior leadership, myself and others, but I think ultimately we had thousands contributing to it, and about $7 million, the Better Together Fund, and and this was I don't know what were the size of grants generally, Melissa, or it was a couple $1,000s going to individual. This was to all employees, but I'm very proud, frankly, of what Jefferson has done and stepped forward, to help their colleagues.
And we should be, because many of our gifts were upwards of $100,000 and more, in addition to thousands of $25, $100 gifts, that just an outpouring of our community, both from our alumni, even our students, our patients, just a real coming together to really serve one another. So we have, I think, great reason to be proud of that campaign. And I've said this before, Dr. Tykocinski has heard me say this, but it really began with our Jefferson leadership, our cabinet, Dr. Tykocinski, Dr. Klasko, all of them stepping forward first and saying that they wanted to make this commitment. And many of them made sizable contributions to the campaign. So it really started at the top, and I want people to know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Well, thank you. This is, we could go on for, we all love Jefferson and we're excited to help our future generations. And so, but I know that an hour is late and we're beyond our time, but I think this is a good sign that, the conversation was engaging in some good ideas. I'll throw the offer out again about the gala, because that money does go into to help students in the university. So, if you want to go virtually, you sit home in your sweats or whatever, and you get a meal. So anyway, and there's a program. So December 3rd. So let the Alumni Relations Office know, me know, and we will get you set up with that. So I want to thank anybody. Any last comments from Alumni Relations? Anything else I need to say? Okay. So I thank you all for staying with us and for being on tonight. I think it was a wonderful evening. I thank Dr. Tykocinski for your wonderful report, and for all of you for participating and sharing your ideas. This is not the end. This is actually the beginning of our conversations. We want to really continue this. So we can share contact information, and please stay in touch with us, however you feel most comfortable. I promise you we'll get back to you and we will engage you. And whether it's about money or programs or ideas, we want to hear it. We want to hear from our 17,000 alumni. That's an 11,000 or so medical college and 6,000 or 7,000 postgraduate. So we are a huge alumni base. So please, you're part of our family, and we're all in this together. So thank you. Stay safe, wash hands, mask up, all those things. And I hope everybody stays well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Thank you.